Live everywhere.
Daily Co's Radio on netrootsradio.com presents
David Waldman. Kagro in the Morning Show. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How are you? It is Friday, September 9th, 2016. Are you ready for another show? Am I ready for another show?
No!
Apparently not. Okay. I recently rediscovered the sound effects buttons here. There's a fly in the studio today, so the show is canceled. We're done now. I don't think I can concentrate. I'm just going to be swatting at it every 5 seconds or so. I'll keep you up to date. I need like SEAL Team 6 in here to get rid of this fly. Okay, I'm okay, you're okay. It's time for another show. I don't know what we're going to do. It's getting to be that time. Bill, though, knows how to start a show. Daily Coast Radio is live now, he tweets from Portland, Maine. The NSA's body language says, host Kagro X, that's me, David Waldman, knows a hell of a lot more than Donald Trump. The man is stupid. Can I put it any more bluntly than that? I don't think so. I mean, there are people dumber than him, to be sure, but he's, I think, among the dumbest who's ever been nominated for president by a major party. He's just the combination of arrogance and stupidity. I don't know. I'm not sure what to do with it. It's a mess. I'm telling you, it's a total mess. Believe me. But we're done. I keep coming back to this, and we share it each morning. Anybody who intentionally hires people to paint his face orange, I mean, you need to look at that person's mental capacity. There's something wrong with that guy. Paint your face a normal color, please, at some point. That would be great, especially if you're going to insist that you're actually a potential president of the United States. It's rather unbelievable. We'll catch up with the latest in craziness. I don't think at the moment, he's not the craziest person whose views are being decried on Twitter. At the moment, the honor goes to Hugh Hewitt, who's another relatively stupid guy, for his tweet announcing Putin is an evil man. We knew this, I guess. POTUS, the President of the United States, I love that acronym. I actually hate that acronym. POTUS, a good man, a good but incompetent man. Putin has served his country's national interest better, he says. This is apparently an answer to Ron Fournier's tweet, which I can't tell you about because here's the state of the world. Ron Fournier has me blocked, but Hugh Hewitt doesn't, so I get to read Hugh Hewitt's view that Putin's an evil man. The president, while a good man, is incompetent, and that makes Putin evil but better in terms of serving his national interest. Now, of course, one might ask whether Putin, the evil but competent man, has served our national interest better, because Donald Trump very much wants to serve Putin's interest as president of our country. I wonder what Hugh's answer would be to that, except that I don't really care, and it's difficult to tweet while I'm doing a show, especially without Greg Dworkin on hand to distract you while I putter off and tweet something completely unrelated to what I'm supposed to be talking about. So I'll put that one aside, though, and we'll see what we can do about responding to Hugh Hewitt as if he cared, I guess. But this is a theme among the right. Let's see. Yesterday, what was it that they were tweeting out? Frank Luntz was tweeting out, and I saw somebody take a screenshot of his tweet and tweet that out so that we didn't have to respond directly to him. I thought it's always clever when that gets done. Where did that one go? That was, I guess, he had conducted a survey asking people, what was it? Here it is. I had to scroll back to find the picture. Who would you rather, this is the crux of it, right? Hugh Hewitt is only hinting at this. Frank Luntz is asking people, who would you rather have as your president? Your president. Not, well, he's evil, but he serves his country's interests well, just not ours. Who would you rather have as your president? Answer, 40% answer Barack Obama, who is our president, by the way, right now. 60% say, I'd rather have Vladimir Putin. That's one of those online polls. That's how he got 60-40 out of it. And, I say planes leave daily. Just head on over to your nearest international airport and book yourself a flight. Is that the same, by the way? I wondered about that. When I said it, I said, am I telling people love it or leave it? No. I'm just letting people know if you would rather have him as your president, you can do it. You have that option. He is the president of a country, and you can go to that country. And it's fine. And, I suppose it's a much more direct question, right? And remember, of course, the love it or leave it was backwards from that. I love this country, but there's something wrong with it, is the assertion, the response to which is, well, that's not valid. Either love your country, right or wrong, or leave your country. As opposed to, I'd rather live under Vladimir Putin as my... I'd rather live under a Vladimir Putin administration than a Barack Obama one. Okay, you should do that. That's an affirmative, that's not, well, my country is great. I love it here. I just wish we could do something different with it. Although I guess you could argue, well, I wish we could elect Vladimir Putin as our president rather than having Barack Obama. Or I'm sure, more to the point, the only thing they would comp to is I'd rather have anybody than Barack Obama. And I guess that would get closer to the love it or leave it formulation. Well, if you don't win the presidency with your preferred candidate, then you should leave the country. But again, it's not like that. And it was never like that, of course, when people were saying that either, love it or leave it. Well, you misunderstand. Oh, well, I don't need to explain this to you, do I? It's just rather amazing. Okay, let's see. I should probably put this one aside as well so that we can all have that in our afternoon summary of all the action going on here today. Let's see. Let's jump over to... I got all kinds of news coming in all at once, of course. We'll jump over to Pocket and take a look at what we have to choose from today. It's a veritable smorgasbord. For those of you who remember the animated Charlotte's Web cartoon, you'll recall that song, I'm sure. Or if you have kids and you have played that on your VCR, if you still have one, TiVo, otherwise, anytime in the last couple of months, as we did repeatedly. Just saying, it happened a lot. Okay, let's see. Shall we just sweep across the board here and see how many things we have to sample from? It is, after all, Friday. One of those days where we like to get you as broad a roundup as possible so that you'll have something of interest to chat about with your fabulous social schedule coming up for the weekend. And by the way, anybody have anything good? Let me know and where you are and send me a ticket, because not a whole lot going on around here. Although I think we've got some, Judy, we've got some Eagle projects to work on over here in Virginia. If you guys in Hawaii feel like getting on a plane and coming over here where we have your heat and humidity without all the beautiful scenery, you'll feel quite at home, and you can help out. Okay. Oh, look at this. Okay, well, I'll have to keep this in mind and schedule that. You'll want to hang around while I arrange my weekend schedule. You can help me out. No, instead I will tell you that let's see. Our good friend in Norway, Bjorn, has sent us something to sample. There's a weird thing that I did see break through on elsewhere on my Twitter feed this morning. It's actually become something of a news story. Let me see if I can grab up the... is this all in English here? I'm just making sure. Bjorn hasn't sent me any Norwegian. I mean, it's a Norwegian source, but... well, there's an internal server error, so we do have that problem. Okay, long story short, if I may... still not getting that one. All right, well, we'll see if we can't round that one up in the news. Long story short, there's a bit of a weird controversy going on. Facebook, of course, as you know, taking over the world. The number of people who get their news only from Facebook increasing daily. And you might think, well, since it's mostly an aggregator, is it a really, I mean, in the main, for most people, it's probably not all that unusual and not all that nefarious, I guess, if they're getting their news through Facebook. But it's mostly coming from people pointing to mainstream news sources. You would think, okay, well, they'll get a good cross-sampling of the news. It'll all be okay. But I guess news feeds meeting digital technology, meeting community policing standards, which are absolutely necessary in the digital world. But look at where one of the laws of unintended consequences, or one of the unintended consequences, I guess, that we expect thanks to the law of unintended consequences, in order to, I think we've put that one right. In Norway, I don't know what the circumstances are because is an internal server error that won't allow me to read the paper's story here, but I guess the the community policing standards / automatic algorithms / who knows what on Facebook has got us to the point where, based solely on the content and without any historical context lent to the analysis, we have the iconic photo taken during the Vietnam War that many people credit with changing, I think, the direction of, certainly partly public support for the war and how the war is being conducted, in particular, the actual mechanics of it. Napalm coming to the fore as a uniquely dangerous and borderline, if not just straight over the border, criminal act, the way it was used on civilian populations. Of course, I'm talking about the iconic photo of the children fleeing a napalm attack down the middle of the street, one of whom has had the clothes blown or burned right off her back. Of course, you know that the photo we're talking about, and a young girl is crying and fleeing the scene. And, that one shocked consciences around the world. And I guess because online and because automatic algorithms, okay, at bottom, this is a photograph of a naked prepubescent girl. So that gets categorized by, I guess, by the computers, but I guess also by people. And recall that, of course, there were many people disturbed by the photo in a different way when it came out, which was, oh my God, this is going to erode support for the war in Vietnam. And that in itself is terrible. And I'm sure that at the time people said, oh, now look at this. Opponents of the war are resorting to child pornography to try to sway the nation. Well, that's not what that is. This is documenting a horrible and humiliating, yes, that element is there, event. It's just, I think that was meant to portray the fact that, you know what, ordinarily you wouldn't want to run down the street naked, crying or otherwise, but it's better than staying where she is. There's just simply no alternative. That's how bad the war in Vietnam is getting, and that's how brutally we are conducting it. Okay. Anyway, I guess, that's an interesting thing. The question was posed on Twitter this morning, how much of our iconic news, or things that we all understand to be touchstones, at least in America, of these cultural touchstones, how much of it would make it through on Facebook, not just because, not every historical moment in America features nudity. That's true, for better or for worse. In this case, we're neutral on it because it doesn't have anything in particular to do with things other than to portray the humanity of it. But it's an interesting question. How much would be lost, particularly given the fact that so much of the community policing is liable to be partisan? That is, the moment photos or not, the moment you bring something up that's controversial, and something becomes controversial these days because it inures to the benefit of a candidate I do not prefer, or doesn't tell the story I wish it would tell, or whatever, and people just rate it as offensive or biased or insufficiently sourced or what have you, and you find yourself missing out on who knows what, because who knows who has said you don't deserve to see it. So one of the hidden perils, I guess, of getting all of your news online. Okay. Parlio, this sounds exciting, says that his Sunday plan is attending the 1 million plus person demonstration for Catalonia's National Day. That ought to be interesting. I'm sure some fires will be lit and some arrests will ensue, but that's just your kind of everyday street demonstration in Catalonia. That's just the way they have fun there. Nobody's going to be seriously hurt. And all right, that's I'm not going. So it's more interesting than what I've got going on. Whether, regardless of how I feel about Catalonia's independence movement, and how do I feel? I don't really know. I'll take my cues from Parlio, to tell you the truth. Independence sounds nice, but I haven't really heard from the Spanish on that one. If we have any listeners in Madrid who want to protest the protest, let me know. Or maybe you've had enough of Catalonia and you would like it to go its own way. All right. So let's see. Much more discussion. Okay. Actually, he says the September 11th demonstrations, and it is September 11th, I suppose. The demonstrations are always super peaceful. Yeah, okay. I guess that's true. It's only when Barcelona beats Real Madrid that things get really crazy. Or at least that was the case, I have this impression of street demonstrations in Catalonia because one time, a million years ago, I was in Barcelona and that happened. So there you go. Barcelona beat Real Madrid and fires were set and cars were overturned. But National Day, okay, good. It's nice and peaceful. That's good to know. And we correct a terrible stereotype, not just because it's unfair to the Catalan people, but because it's an actual terrible stereotype. It's based on almost zero observation, and those are probably the worst kind. So let's see, I can check that one off. Horrible stereotype foment, and okay. All right, we're getting towards the end of the list here. By the way, Bjorn, there's actually another story about another Bjorn. This one wasn't about you. It's not all about you, Bjorn. Jeez. But there's another Bjorn in my pocket feed. It has nothing to do with electoral politics, but because everything's political, we can sort of connect it. We all have heard about the dangers of concussions in professional football. I had no idea I was going here today until I saw Bjorn in my Twitter feed. Bizarre story sent to me by one of my brothers. Harvey sent this to me and to all the rest of us, and so Harvey's not listening, I don't think, but Mark might be listening. So maybe you know where I'm going. Have you read this one already? The one Harvey sent us, the Buffalo News reporting under the title, "Who do you think you are, Bjorn Nitmo?" Let's see. Does that even ring any bells for anybody? I wonder. If you are a David Letterman fan, I believe it would ring a bell for you. If you're a New York Giants fan, maybe. I had to come up with some other references to try and help my wife remember who Bjorn Nitmo was. He kicked for the New York Giants as well as a couple of other teams, and I guess did he kick for Buffalo? Is that why I find this in the Buffalo News? I don't know. Anyway, the amazing dangers of repeated head blows and concussions, now coming to the fore and really ruining the enjoyment of football, as it should, but slowly weaning me off of at least cheering quite so loudly about football. Anyway, Nitmo, who's a kicker, has had terrible problems with all sorts of memory loss, etc., due to concussion, and you don't really think of the kickers getting this all the time. But when kickers do get involved in trying to make a tackle, well, usually, of course, it's an emergency. And what happens is they tend to get their bells rung because they're not tacklers and they don't really have the best, most up-to-date equipment, and they're just not used to making that kind of contact. And they're usually hitting somebody who's going full steam and sees the end zone, in sight, and is just not going to be stopped. Plus, of course, there's often a blocker around. It's terrible news if you're a kicker and you have to get involved in a tackle. A lot of guys really like it, and it gives them a chance to show that they can really play football. Bjorn Nitmo, of course, not American-born, I guess, soccer-style kicker, and, they needed that in the league, and he thought, oh, maybe I can make some of these tackles. I'll show him I can play this game. It didn't work out well for him. But it's really a tragic story. I mean, I don't know if I can bring it up without telling it, but let me see if I can give you a sampling of it, because it's sort of a too long thing. I mean, it's a serious issue, but I wasn't going to spend this much time on concussions, particularly not Bjorn Nitmo's concussions. But if you remember him from the Letterman days, basically, long story short on that one, I think it's told right up at the top here. We'll just go right into it. And so we'll share a little bit of this, and it's something to talk about. Tim Graham is the reporter at the Buffalo News who put this one together. Bjorn Nitmo, and it's Nittmo, in case you want to look him up and see, do I remember that guy? I did remember him. It didn't really ring a bell until I realized, oh yes, we had a pejorative term for him and his kicking. He was an okay kicker, but I'm sure he must have done something and missed a kick somewhere along the line that pissed us off. And by the way, kicking for the NFL, to get it through those uprights from as far away as they have to kick it sometimes, we think of some of these field goals as automatic because all the kickers in the NFL are pretty damn good. But if you've ever gotten down on a field and had a look at how narrow those things are and how far you have to kick that thing and kick it straight, the idea that you could criticize a kicker for missing one, it's ridiculous. You'd never come close in a million years. Almost doesn't matter who you are. Unless, of course, you're a professional soccer player. And then maybe you have a chance at it. Maybe. But, of course, So he missed a kick, so we called him something else. Nitmo, the nit, it has a nifty rhyme that you can call somebody if they miss a kick and you think they're crap. So we called him that Mo. Bjorn, no, I can't say it on here. I don't think, although maybe altogether, if I run it together, maybe I can get away with it, but I'm not going to risk it because our good friends at We Act Radio, 1480 on your AM dial, really don't need to deal with that kind of nonsense, but you can get the idea. So that was what finally got my wife to remember who I was talking about. You remember Bjorn Beep Mo? Oh, Beep Mo. Yeah, I remember that guy. Who replaced him? That must have been in the early 90s. Was Brad Daluiso the next guy up? Remember, for a while the Giants carried two kickers, one accurate guy and one deep kicker. Athena 5000 chimes in. I've been a New York Giants fan since the early 80s. I stopped because of the NFL's policy regarding the non-care of former players. Pretty damn easy to do. I agree. I don't know if I'm ever going to give it up entirely, although I will say this, the Giants currently are making it easier than ever to give up entirely on football. Not got the brightest prospects in the world, although I don't know how this season looks. But DirecTV is probably actually the bigger contributor to all that. The price for their Sunday ticket package has gone sky high, and I just can't justify it anymore, especially when the Giants are on TV an awful lot for free. So I don't get every game anymore, but $300 and something, $400 to make sure I get one or two extra games. Never mind. Anyway, poor Bjorn Nitmo, Tim Graham tells us, is out there somewhere, presumably in the Arizona mountains, maybe installing home satellite systems, hopefully not DirecTV because blah, 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 football package. Okay, you get the idea. But it could, as long as he's working. Maybe installing home satellite systems, but almost certainly running from himself. It really is tragic. Imagine what's going on in the guy's head. 11 years ago, he stopped coming home to his wife and 4 children. The youngest was 6 months old. He had lost part of his memory and still complains about the constant howling in his head from a concussive whomp. And of course, these are exactly the kind of conditions that drive a lot of former players to kill themselves. He has filed for bankruptcy and faced, like Donald Trump, he should be president, and faced at least 6 civil judgments or liens. At some point, he began using a different name. There might be a sinister reason to take on an alias, or perhaps he simply grew tired of people asking if he was that Bjorn Nitmo. And an excerpt here from, I don't know what, but explanatory by way of, what do you mean, that Bjorn Nitmo, if you don't know? Yes, he's the same guy David Letterman introduced in 1989. Oh, maybe this is just smaller type because we're getting into the main body of the story. He's the same guy David Letterman introduced in 1989 as, quote, the only Bjorn Nitmo in the New Jersey phone book. In actuality, he's the only Bjorn Nitmo in the world, though he is more peculiar than even that. Nitmo was the left-footed, southern-drawled, Swedish place kicker, not Norwegian, that the media treated like a geegaw from a Cracker Barrel store. He was a New York Giants rookie when he became a recurring character on NBC's groundbreaking, I don't know about that, Late Night with David Letterman. Letterman was smitten with saying Bjorn Nitmo, extra emphasis on the nit. Invited him on the show as a guest and then invited him back again. Letterman, tickled later to hear a man was pretending to be Nitmo at Manhattan bars in order to get free drinks and score with ladies, made "Who do you think you are, Bjorn Nitmo?" a late-night catchphrase. Nitmo was a New York celebrity. His NFL dreams were coming true. An innocent immigrant's charm made him easy to root for, unless you called him, Bleep Mo, like I did. I feel terrible now. It was exciting, his then-wife, Mary Lois Nitmo, said. You thought, here we are. We're going to have it all. And we didn't. Bjorn Nitmo's brightest memories are accompanied by a dull VHS flicker and a low-def warble. Seated next to Letterman or kicking footballs into the studio audience at 30 Rockefeller Plaza, there's so much life in Nitmo's twinkly blue eyes, his curly, dirty blonde mullet, remember it? And his gee-whiz smile. Nitmo played 6 games for the Giants in 1989 and never kicked in a real NFL game again. That's the extent of it. And by the way, speaking of all the injuries and the after effects and everything, that's why the big price tag for an NFL player is justified in many cases. Your NFL career is subject to termination at any time, and you could completely destroy your brain playing the game. I think they should pay you more if they could. And they can. The merchandising being what it is. But the owners are keeping that money instead. All right. Different subject. The Buffalo Bills signed him to test Scott Norwood's psyche in the summer after wide right. That would be after the 1990 Super Bowl, which actually took place in 1991, which the Giants won 20-19 when Norwood missed a field goal wide and to the right that would have sent them to victory in the Super Bowl, but didn't, so the Giants won. Hooray. It was very exciting. Terrible for Scott Norwood, and I guess the Bills sign him to test his psyche in camp. Can he get it together and stay with his head in the game or what? So they sign the Giants kicker to test him out. Nitmo chased the NFL for 12 years, a vagabond from the World League of American Football to the Canadian Football League to the Arena Football League, including a season for the Buffalo Destroyers. That's how we get to Buffalo News. Okay. Had there been another American Pro Football League, Nitmo would have sought employment there. He kicked for the Miami Sharks of the fictional Associated Football Franchises of America in the 1999 Oliver Stone film Any Given Sunday. Nitmo's NFL tryouts were countless. He came cruelly close to being the Kansas City Chiefs kicker in 1996. He was overthrowing Tampa Bay Buccaneers incumbent Michael Husted. I'm not sure how he says Husted or Housted. In 1997, maybe a Bucs fan from way back can tell me, but a concussion erased enough of Nitmo's brain, and that's really what happened, that he insisted he had one child, although at the time he had two. A month later, Nitmo still couldn't retrieve weeks of his summer. He grew increasingly unstable. I got a note here from Justice, who's an old football player himself, so I want to check in on what this is. It's not the concussions that players get in games. It's all the concussions over time during practice that is most debilitating. Kickers do take part in tackling drills. And that's a good point. I mean, we only see what happens on TV, but of course, these guys get their heads knocked day in, day out, sometimes twice a day over the summer, and, it takes its toll. And kickers, I guess, do take part in tackling drills. I don't know how often they get themselves whacked. They do have to drill because, of course, you don't want your very first attempt at tackling to be in a live game situation. But my guess is that particularly when you are in a tackling drill, I think you're maybe just a little bit more prepared for these things. These things don't sting and ring your bell quite as bad. You certainly can get hit as hard as any other time in a tackling drill. But if you're in a tackling drill, it's just different. And of course, one, not expecting to have to tackle anybody. Two, doing it under the lights of game time and on national television. Three, so sometimes it happens on the opening kickoff, which I'm sure is just that much worse for a kicker. Your stomach just drops. So, I don't know. I imagine it certainly for Nitmo, the game time hit was the one we're really worried about. Returning to that though, so this is what happens. It's the hit he takes with the Bucs preseason, I believe, that really does the trick. And this one, a month later, as we said, after the hit, Nitmo couldn't retrieve weeks of his summer. He grew increasingly unstable. Now, he's a phantom, a vapor. He disappears for months, sometimes years, until he returns unannounced, shabbier and more withered than the previous visit. His stops are fleeting. He arrives suddenly and vanishes in a poof, another fever dream figment. His loved ones fear it's too late to pull him out of his abyss, that any day they'll answer a phone call informing them that he was found dead along the roadside. July 26th was his 50th birthday. There's not a lot of living going on for Bjorn Nitmo, because he got hit in the head once. Nitmo's children refused to call him Dad, just sort of more tragedy on top of tragedy. To them, he's just Bjorn. And the last time they saw him, in late April, the first time in 7 months, he appeared homeless. His beard was scraggly and overgrown. His clothes were baggy. His Arizona Cardinals ball cap ratty. It was very disturbing the way he looked, Mary Lois said at the sturdy pine dining room table in her Winsboro, Texas home, about 100 miles east of Dallas. He said he hadn't showered in a couple of days. He's lost a lot of weight. I think we all realize where this is headed. Bjorn showed up from 2 states away to slip a Mother's Day card under the windshield wiper of Mary Lois's blue Honda minivan. They've been divorced nearly 11 years, yet he continues to deliver cards for their anniversary, her birthday, Valentine's Day. But to suggest Bjorn Nitmo operates like clockwork would be folly. He didn't realize Mother's Day was over a week away. Alerted by a coworker that a disheveled man was lurking around her car in the Winsboro Elementary parking lot, Mary Lois went outside and convinced Bjorn to come home and see the kids. The weary Nitmo family endured another emotionally charged, awkward meeting. They begged him to get help for the umpteenth time. Then he evaporated again, presumably back to the Arizona mountains, but not without mentioning that he might drift up to the Northwest for work. Maybe he'll actually wander there. Maybe he dropped that tidbit to inhibit his family from tracking him so he can hide out until the next time. Bjorn Nitmo did not respond to messages left on his known working mobile phone for this story about a football player and his family muddling through the damage wrought by his dogged pursuit of a dream. Sometimes you get only one shot to make your mark. Sometimes only one shot can take it all away. Now, this will tell the story of it. For nearly 19 years, Mary Lois Nitmo had not seen the play she believes disintegrated her husband, and eventually repelled him from his 4 young children off into the Cocosino Mountains of northern Arizona. Hope we got that right. The preseason exhibition between the Buccaneers and Atlanta Falcons on August 9th, 1997, wasn't on television in the part of Florida where the Nitmos lived. Mary Lois stayed home with their 2 girls and wasn't aware Bjorn's opening kickoff had gone awry until the Buccaneers called after the game. Nitmo had 2 previously diagnosed concussions Mary Lois knows of. Both happened while kicking for the Montreal Machine in the World League. To be informed of a 3rd head injury was disconcerting, sure, but long-term effects from multiple concussions weren't considered perilous 2 decades ago as they are today. To everyone's detriment, as we know. Then Bjorn got on the phone. He asked Mary Lois about 3-year-old Katarina, but had zero recollection of Madeline 6 days shy of her first birthday. There are parts of our lives, Mary Lois said, he still doesn't remember. Husted's, the other kicker, remember? Husted's recollection of witnessing Nitmo get hurt were crystalline. The fear of losing his spot to Nitmo jolted his senses. Husted was entering his 5th season in Tampa Bay, but wobbled the previous season, missing 7 of 19 field goal attempts from week 6 to week 14. Nitmo was signed to challenge Husted and got off to a better start in training camp. The opening kickoff was moments away when Tampa Bay special teams coordinator Joe Marciano instructed Husted to stand down. Nitmo was getting the first shot. So I think, Husted says, they were giving him a chance to take the job. In May, finally, this May, Mary Lois saw what happened next. The Buffalo News obtained a copy of the Buccaneers game telecast. At the same pine table the Nitmos staged their latest intervention 3 weeks later. She leaned hesitantly toward a computer monitor. Madeline sat nearby for support. There was Nitmo in a white uniform, his left arm raised to signal the opening kickoff. He looked to his left to make sure the coverage unit was already on that side. He turned to make sure they were ready on his right. He had a goatee. He anxiously chewed gum. All the things we remember about him. Mary Lois gasped at the sight of him. Nitmo took 2 steps, a little timing skip, and 2 more steps. He swung his left foot, clubbing the ball end over end down the Georgia Dome field. Falcons rookie Byron Hanspard snagged Nitmo's kick a yard deep in the end zone and glided up the left hash marks. Hanspard hit a seam and didn't break stride as he closed on Nitmo, the final defender, at the Falcons' 36-yard line. Mary Lois was transfixed, but began to tremble. She sniffed back tears. Nitmo tried to wrap Hanspard around the waist. But the reigning Doak Walker Award winner, that's college football's best running back, was too fast and too strong. Nitmo's left arm slowed him enough to prevent the touchdown, but Hanspard's force helicoptered Nitmo to the turf. But that isn't it, of course. That's not even it. Calvin Collins, the Falcons' 6'2", 310-pound rookie offensive lineman, was trucking from behind. He tried to hurdle Nitmo and ended up instead kneeing him in the head. That's what does it. The replay stops 1 frame before contact. Mary Lois sobbed. She'd never seen the play before. It used to take my breath away every time I watched him kick, Mary Lois said of seeing Bjorn on the monitor, and it still took my breath away. Then he got hit, and football took my breath away again. Nitmo lay on the field for 40 seconds until 3 medical staffers pulled him by his arms into a seated position. I don't think you'll see that happening anymore. The medical protocols have changed drastically. He's out cold, I guess. 40 seconds, and then they pull him up into a sitting position. One attendant knelt behind to make sure Nitmo didn't topple backwards again. Nitmo gathered himself for another 10 seconds, rose, and jogged to the sideline. And we're all used to seeing them jogging to the sideline and say, oh, good, they're fine. That's what we used to think, right? Husted recalled his interaction with Nitmo the rest of the night. Went from comical to disbelief to annoying to scary. He first thought Nitmo was fooling, that no football hit could wreck someone's brain so badly and so quickly at that. And the exchange is recounted by Husted like this. Nitmo says, what happened? What quarter are we in? Have I kicked yet? Uh-oh. Husted says, you kicked off. You tried to make the tackle. You got spun around. A big lineman tried to jump over you and his knee caught you in the head. Nitmo, 5 minutes later, asks Husted again, what happened? Have I kicked yet? Husted says, you kicked off. You tried to make the tackle. You got spun around, etc. I'd never seen this, Husted said. By the fourth quarter, he had probably asked me a dozen times. I felt like he was overacting, maybe even faking it. I couldn't believe he was that messed up. It didn't seem real the way he was acting. At the team breakfast in Tampa the next morning, Nitmo asked Husted, did I even play? I've been popped in the head before, and I've been in on tackles, Nitmo told the St. Petersburg Times 2 days after the hit. But when 2 or 3 weeks of your life disappear, and you have no clue what happened, that's kind of scary. Nitmo kicked again 6 days later in the next preseason game, and the Buccaneers ended up waiving him after all that. 10 months later, Nitmo lamented in another St. Petersburg Times article, many memories were never recaptured. For instance, he aspired for years to talk with Falcons kicker Morton Anderson, and probably did during pregame warm-ups. I have no clue if I met the guy or whatever, Nitmo said in June of 1998. I got a chance to meet a legend, and I have no clue. The long-lost video now seen, Mary Lois sat distraught at the dining room table. Her face displayed worry. Her voice became louder, angrier. She spoke her next words slowly, punctuating each sentence by smacking her right fist into an open left hand. He was never the same after that, Mary Lois said. The man I married, he was never the same. That's when we lost him. It's hard to watch someone you love fall apart. That's what I've had to do because of... And she nearly gagged on the next word and just says, because of that. The video of Bjorn's injury and Husted's recollections have haunted Mary Lois since they were shared with her. Unable to sleep that night, she replayed the images on a loop in her mind. She spent much of the next day crying, and she got sick. It was like watching his death, Mary Lois wrote in an email 2 days later. It was something I needed to see, and I needed to hear how he acted on the sideline. I always wondered, but that must have been something, huh? Wow. And now the story continues at some length, recounting later attempts to make it back into professional football, what he's actually doing now, and how he's just sort of, in and out of the lives of his family. And it's really rather unbelievable and tragic. And you should absolutely read it for yourself. But it's a sad story and an amazing one, and amazing how quickly it can all fall apart based on one hit. I don't think that that's the way it happens typically, but clearly it does happen from time to time, and as a kicker, no less. Really amazing. Anyway, that's a little further afield than I thought I was going to get on it, but you know how these things go. It's like listening to a Trump speech. Whatever happens, happens, and I might take a tangent and never come back to the original point. I wanted to share that one with you. I find that rather amazing, and I guess it's a good Friday story. Besides which, preseason is on. There'll be football, right, this weekend. Think about it. See if it ruins the game for you. That wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, I guess. Okay. more lightning roundup stuff. We'll mention this one because it's happening. I don't know how long this one is going to linger, but I guess I could have said the same for the rumors that the insane right wing has been circulating about Hillary Clinton's health. I didn't know how long that they would hang around, but they went mainstream. I guess if you call Rudy Giuliani mainstream. And he continues to press that non-point. So you never know. So maybe this one hasn't entered your consciousness yet. But following the Commander-in-Chief Forum, I guess distraught at having seen their man demolished, essentially. But not that they acknowledged that at all. But Trump fans and conspiracy theorists around the world apparently needed very badly for there to be something terribly, terribly wrong with how Hillary Clinton performed. And she didn't collapse and die and therefore prove their point about her health. So they came up with something else. I first saw it being tweeted about, I guess yesterday morning by Ben Collins. Ben Collins is a senior news editor at the Daily Beast, and he noted yesterday that InfoWars, that's Alex Jones's operation, and Donald Trump's subreddit, over at Reddit, obviously, started an unfounded rumor this morning. It was on Fox News's homepage by noon. Just a little story of the vertical integration that goes on as between some of these outlets. Might as well detail how that works exactly. What was the rumor? Of course, by now you've probably figured out it is the rumor that Hillary Clinton had worn some sort of earpiece during the forum through which she was fed answers as the forum went on. As though the woman who was senator, the woman who was Secretary of State, the woman who's famously makes herself competent in any discipline she needs to, and rather quickly at that, needed that kind of prompting. I think I saw it, was it Kylie Joy Gray, who may have put this, I don't know whether I'm crediting her correctly or not. At any rate, she's basically said what came to mind for me, which was, who would be whispering answers to Hillary Clinton? The only person qualified to whisper answers to Hillary Clinton is Hillary Clinton. But I'm sure she has some very sharp help who also have points that they would like to see made during the forum. But look, it comes down to this. As Georgia pointed out yesterday, our Daily Kos contributing editor, Georgia Logothetis, who had pointed out it's a bad Photoshop is all it is. The pictures that InfoWars and others were circulating just were horrible Photoshops or just terrible pictures that were too grainy to really see anything anyway, that claimed that there was some kind of nearly invisible earpiece in there, by the way, which is all that, just that much more convenient, right? Well, you can't see it because it's invisible. Well, I guess they did that in anticipation of somebody saying, oh, all right, fine, let's take a look at a real picture from the actual forum and zoom in on it. And look at that. There's nothing in her ear. And Ben Collins is the guy who was tasked with that. That's, I guess, how he came to, either maybe he was assigned the story and then was like, what? They said that? Or maybe he saw that and then they said, well, you better write up something about it because it's really stupid and someone needs to say how stupid it is here at the Daily Beast. So he did. Hillary Clinton did not wear an earpiece. Here are close-up pictures to prove it. We are at that stage of the game in American politics. We need to debunk this nonsense. But why do we have to do that? Ordinarily, Alex Jones says something and who cares, right? But now, these days, Alex Jones says something and it ends up on the front page of Fox News because they're all the same, essentially. Breitbart guys are running the campaign. Fox News guys who get fired for being too disgusting for Fox News are running the campaign. And, of course, Drudge has his hand in the mix as well. And that's how these things run. Alex Jones is even said to be consulted for by the campaign directly, for real, not just reading his site and saying we should say this stuff. So here we are. Hillary Clinton did not wear an earpiece. Here are the close-up pictures to prove it. It's about as clear as day. Here's the ear that they said it was in, and it ain't in there. But it's invisible now. It's come to that. Fox News happily lapped up an InfoWars and Reddit-based conspiracy theory alleging Hillary Clinton wore an earpiece at Wednesday's forum. Too bad every other picture from any angle proves otherwise. Too bad / thank God, I guess. As if that were even a possibility. Was Hillary Clinton secretly using an earpiece during the Commander-in-Chief forum on Wednesday night? No, of course not. But this is 2016, so Clinton's campaign was forced to shoot down the rumor that quickly spread from InfoWars and alt-right subreddits to Fox News and Donald Trump Jr.'s official Twitter account on Thursday. There's two guys in the family dumber than Donald Trump. Don Jr. and Eric. I don't know how Barron's doing. He's not old enough to find out. So we'll leave him alone for another couple of years until he starts opening his mouth politically. And if he never does, so much the better. Go on, live your life in peace. Oh, I finally see, flying by on Twitter now, some discussion of the piece that our Norwegian Bjorn sent us earlier about Facebook, and we can kind of give some better context to it if I can find it again and put it aside. Then we'll have something more substantive to talk about on that subject. Okay. But back to the earpiece that doesn't exist. I'm reading you a story now about a thing that doesn't exist. Never mind that it could have been quickly disproved by Googling her head. Google her head. Go ahead. Or watching television. I mean, I guess you can't really Google her head. You can do that, but the pictures from the forum, were they up that quickly? And can you even tell whether they're from this forum or not? It's a pain in the ass. Look, suffice to say, it was on television. Everybody saw her ear. There's nothing in it. The Drudge Report led its website with a picture of Clinton and the headline, Hillary and the Ear Pearl. Not even sure what that's supposed to mean, but that's what the little earpiece looked like. It was so small, it looks like a pearl. It's one of the new iPhone 7 things, I guess. The headline links to an article by InfoWars, which is ridiculous. A website which frequently posts stories about how it believes the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting was staged by the government. That's all the context you really need, in case you were blissfully unaware of InfoWars. Nationally televised video, and pictures from photographers at the event prove that Clinton was not wearing an earpiece. Here are some uncomfortably close-up pictures of Hillary Clinton's ear, because this is what the election has come to. And there they are, 1, 2 in a row, thanks to Heidi Gutman of NBC. And by the way, as Georgia pointed out, not only did they Photoshop in something that was meant to look like an earpiece or enhance a piece of the ear even so that it looked like an earpiece, but they increased the shadows and the contrast and everything to make sure that you could see every wrinkle on Hillary Clinton's face so that she looked ill or aged. She didn't look ill, even. They made her look considerably older than other shots from the same event. Anyway, confirmed, nothing in her ear, Clinton's traveling press secretary Nick Merrill told the Daily Beast. Merrill then linked to one of his own tweets, which he directed at the account of InfoWars founder Alex Jones and Donald Trump Jr., who tweeted the InfoWars earpiece conspiracy article. Guys, wanted to call your attention to the Boeing 737 in HRC's ear. MSM ignoring, he wrote, alongside a picture of Clinton standing in front of her campaign's plane. Still, the conspiracy drew widespread coverage by midday on Thursday. Fox News placed a photo illustration with the phrase, buzz about a bud, on its homepage. Other outlets quickly jumped in on the conspiracy. The Hill, for example, wrote an article exclusively citing InfoWars. That's amazing. Without seeking out readily available photos from the event that disprove the possibility of the candidate wearing an earpiece. Really. From InfoWars to The Hill. That's a leap I didn't expect. InfoWars top editor and founder Jones believes there is a government project where humanoids are crossed with fish. Justice Antonin Scalia, of course, was murdered, according to his thinking, and some tornadoes are government-created. Good source. Donald Trump's largest online community, Reddit's r/the Donald, and if you're really looking for it, it's r/the_Donald. It's an alt-right viper pit, but go ahead and look if you want to. Quickly took a victory lap on Thursday after repeatedly posting the picture in the early hours of the morning before mainstream press pounced on the conspiracy. Well, they should, I mean, they did something completely ridiculous, came up with something out of thin air, and got it on the news. We can't get them to report, Pam Bondi's story, but okay, they really are finally reporting that. I guess they couldn't ignore that. But that took a hell of a lot longer than this fake earpiece one. You tell me what's going on. Fox News, now covering the earpiece, reads the top post on the subreddit at press time. Hang on, centipedes, whatever that's supposed to mean. This is about to explode. They're disgusting. I'm sure it's something gross. Anyway, a questionnaire to become a moderator of the r/the Donald, posted earlier this year, included the questions, was 9/11 an inside job? And is there a difference between white nationalism and white supremacy? That's what it takes to get in there, I guess. In an r/the Donald thread posted today titled Based Matt, that's what it says. Based Matt Drudge is on the case. I don't even know what that slang is supposed to mean. The top comment appears to take credit for the spread of the earpiece meme. We are the media now, says a user who goes by the name of South Florida Guy. Fantastic. And not only are the media, they're also the campaign management. So nothing wrong with that, right? Okay. Just thought I would throw that out there. Moving on to other news, perhaps equally ridiculous and equally disturbing, but with slightly more impact. I will share with you from Daily Kos, written up by Christian Dem in North Carolina. We've got this piece here, and I'm sure you're actually familiar and know him well. He's a long-time user since way back. Gosh, I don't know, the dark ages probably. Fox News hacked Media Matters' phones and possibly others. We did hear the other day that Fox News was in trouble for all sorts of corporate espionage. Of course, that was part of the Roger Ailes story that Gabriel Sherman made plain, that he kept in-house espionage operations going with his own private investigators, sometimes investigating enemies of Fox News, sometimes investigating employees at Fox News, sometimes investigating employees he'd molested at Fox News to see if they were continuing to keep their mouths shut as agreed. Others, in case they were, because they had become dissidents inside the company. And then, of course, he was also famously monitoring people outside, but of particular interest were the people outside who were monitoring him personally, as opposed to attacking Fox News, though he considered those to be the same thing. And I think to the extent he ever had to justify those expenses, he would just say, well, they're attacking us, Fox News, trying to undermine us and attack our legitimacy. What they were really doing, of course, was documenting the atrocities of his sexual harassment. But hey, it's all one, just like it says on the Dr. Bronner's bottle. Okay. Well, as it turns out, he was also monitoring, Media Matters, because Media Matters was, in fact, attacking Fox News and undermining its legitimacy, but they were doing it because that was the correct thing to do and correct thing to report. But I thought it was of particular interest, one, because it's a continuation of a pattern among Rupert Murdoch properties, for one thing. It wasn't that long ago that he was caught with his UK properties hacking the phones of, the royal family and the phones of families of murder victims just to try to get a juicier scoop for their front pages of their tabloids. Why is it that Rupert Murdoch's people all over the world keep getting caught being involved in these things? Gee whiz. I don't know. It must be just hundreds of bad apples all over the place, acting in their own capacity as lone wolves. Well, among the media hacked was, in fact, Media Matters. Originally, I'd heard that their emails were hacked, and now it turns out their phones as well. So Christian Dem in North Carolina puts this piece together. In case you missed it, Gabriel Sherman recently wrote a very detailed account of the downfall of Roger Ailes. We did discuss that. However, there's one anecdote that has nothing to do with the festering sexual harassment scandal, maybe, surrounding the man who turned the Fair and Balanced network into a Republican agitprop machine. I would have said sex ring, but agitprop machine is true too. It turns out that in its quest to dig up dirt on those who dared to call out Fox News, Ailes stooped to the same level as his counterparts across the pond, phone hacking. It turns out that back in 2010, right around the time the phone hacking scandal at News of the World broke in full, Fox News hired a private eye to obtain the landline and cell records of Media Matters reporter Joe Strupp. How about that? In other words, what ended up happening was, oh my God, look what they're doing at News of the World. We need to do that. Can we get a guy who can help us do that? In the fall of that year, Strupp had written several articles quoting anonymous Fox sources, and the network wanted to determine who was talking to him. This was the culture. Getting phone records doesn't make anybody blink, one Fox executive told me, and I believe that comes straight out of the Sherman piece that we discussed the other week. Although the hiring was nominally done by General Counsel Diane Brandy, there is little doubt that this has Ailes' fingerprints on it. The Daily Beast and News Hounds were the first to notice this potentially new scandal. Media Matters has been one of Fox News' main tormentors for over a decade, so it should come as no surprise that it was a target of the dirty tricks operation run by Ailes on the 14th floor of 1212 Avenue of the Americas. But this was a new low even for Fox News. Indeed, Media Matters President Bradley Baychok is convinced Fox News tried to hack others' phones as well, and also tried to hack email. I had hoped that there was some chance Fox News could be reformed after Ailes got the gate. I've never used that term before, but okay. But if it turns out, I have no hope that it can be reformed, and no wish to see it reformed, but I think he's just being nice because he's a Christian. Oh well. If it turns out that Fox News brass condoned both sexual harassment and phone hacking, then this network isn't just a propaganda machine. Well, it's a sex ring. I told you about that. It's a criminal organization. That too. And it should get the same treatment that the News of the World got. That is, it must die by 1,000 cuts. Hooray. Media Matters has already all but announced it will sue. Hopefully this will be the first step in suing Fox News out of existence. Speaking of suing Fox News out of existence, there is some question about whether or not, you'll recall at the end of last week, we had questions about whether or not Gretchen Carlson, for instance, was going to continue to sue Roger Ailes personally, despite Fox settling with her because she wasn't suing Fox. But we determined by the end of the show that Fox was just intervening, and part of the agreement was we'll pay you $20 million and you drop the suit, the personal suit against Ailes. This is it. This is the end of the line for the Gretchen Carlson lawsuit. So I think that story has held up. But later that day, rumors began to circulate that, well, though Fox was picking up the tab, Roger Ailes was going to be expected to pick up some of that himself personally, that some portion of the $20 million settlement was supposed to be paid by Ailes himself. And that sounded like it might even be the sort of thing that, well, could be true. Rupert Murdoch is doubtless furious at having had to spend so much money to settle this and having so much at risk with his main cash cow. But, and so it was believable that he was going to insist, especially since Ailes was going to get a $40 million severance, that some of that $20 million settlement come out of his pocket. But by the end of the day, that had been called into question, and I don't think I put aside I don't know. Did I? I mean, maybe the Vanity Fair story. Did the Vanity Fair story mention? Did we read it? I think so. I mentioned that I had it. That was my that was the source I gave to Scott to use for the summary. It was their report that I grabbed first off of Twitter that announced the settlement. But did they report that Ailes was going to pay some of it? I don't think that they did. But that came from other sources, and during the course of the day, it was repeated over and over again. But then, by the end of the day, I noticed that TPM had a different take on things, and under the in the piece from Catherine Kruger that was titled. Dramatically enough. Come on, pull it up here so I can see it. Open up, computer. Boom! It says, Fox coughs up $20 million to settle Gretchen Carlson case. But here's the interesting point. In here somewhere, it was counter to what everyone else was saying. They reported in their piece that that Ailes would not be paying any of it at all. Although now I see, as I scan through it, I'm looking for that line, and I note that the post has been updated, so I guess we better skim through it and see if it's still there. Fox News, they reported on Friday, has settled former host Gretchen Carlson's sexual harassment lawsuit against ex-CEO Roger Ailes. Was it Friday? No. I guess that's earlier this week. Today's the 9th, so Thursday was the 8th. This is the 6th, so Tuesday? On Tuesday they put this one out. Fox News has settled former host Gretchen Carlson's sexual harassment lawsuit against ex-CEO Roger Ailes, the network's parent company confirmed on Tuesday. Oh, did we only read this on Tuesday? Maybe that was it. Feels like we discussed it a lot on Friday, but we didn't discuss the settlement until this Tuesday. That's right. It did not announce the terms of the settlement agreement, but Vanity Fair, which first reported on the settlement earlier Tuesday, pegged it at a whopping $20 million. As part of the network settlement on Ailes' behalf, the parent company, 21st Century Fox, offered Carlson an unprecedented public apology. 21st Century Fox is pleased to announce that it has settled Gretchen Carlson's lawsuit. During her tenure at Fox News, Gretchen exhibited the highest standards of journalism and professionalism, the statement read. We sincerely regret and apologize for the fact that Gretchen was not treated with the respect that she and all our colleagues deserve. That's not even that great of an apology, but it's okay. In a statement, Carlson said, I am gratified that 21st Century Fox took decisive action after I filed my complaint. I'm ready to move on to the next chapter of my life in which I will redouble my efforts to empower women in the workplace. Okay, great. Two anonymous sources familiar with the discussions told Vanity Fair that settlement agreements have also been reached with two other women. Although Carlson only named Ailes, not the network, in her suit, two sources told Vanity Fair that Fox News is essentially his insurer for any settlement. Yuck. Ailes, so I guess, I don't know, Fox viewers bumping up the revenue from ads. It's advertisers are paying the settlement, I guess. That's nice to know. Although Carlson, we read that part. Ailes' attorney, Susan Estrich, disgustingly enough, told New York Magazine's Gabriel Sherman that reports Ailes would personally contribute to the massive settlement are inaccurate. 21st Century Fox will pay the settlement, an unnamed executive told Sherman. So there we have it. The settlement is a landmark for the network as it moves into the post-Ailes era. Carlson's bombshell lawsuit prompted an independent review of Ailes' conduct, which garnered allegations from nearly 24 women. Just 2 months after the allegations were first made public, Ailes resigned. As head of the network, he built into a powerhouse for conservative news. Carlson's civil complaint filed in New Jersey court on July 6th alleged Ailes for years made sexual advances toward her, at one point telling her, I think you and I should have had a sexual relationship a long time ago. When Carlson rebuffed his alleged advances, the former Fox News boss began ostracizing, marginalizing, and shunning her at the network, which she said included pulling her off the morning show Fox and Friends in 2013. In Sherman's bombshell report, published in New York Magazine last week, he reported Carlson secretly recorded incidents of Ailes' alleged sexual harassment for a year. New York Magazine reported that Megyn Kelly, one of the network's top talents, was among those who told investigators about alleged inappropriate sexual advances by Ailes and lobbied current and former employees to speak out. Another lawsuit brought by host Andrea Tantaros against Ailes, the network, and several top executives is still pending. So I think that's definitive word as of Tuesday anyway, and I haven't seen much in the way of big-time updates since then. That's where it stands. As far as I know, no, Roger Ailes is not paying any of this settlement. I haven't seen anybody contradict that since. If you have, by all means, share it with me, and I will watch it fly by and forget to announce it until later, probably. That's just what I do. Oh, okay. Bjorn has chimed in to send me another link on the Facebook story. I ought to return to it. Here it is in The Guardian. I had it on my other computer before, but of course, the desktop likes to shut the monitor off every couple of minutes if I don't do anything. So, let's see. This points to the Globe and Mail, the Canadian papers report on this. Facebook's control over our content means we get 9/11 trutherisms, but not 20th century icons. Facebook erased the photo of Vietnam's napalm girl. Norway and its PM don't like that. Okay, let's take a look. Does that point at the same place, though? Or does just the Globe and Mail just use the same tribal link shortener as the Guardian? Globe and Mail. Okay, so their headline is, Facebook erased this photo of Vietnam's napalm girl. Norway and its PM don't like that. Here's why. And here, the Guardian. Oh, is it the same piece? Maybe it's... no, it's not. So, okay. Well, which one to read? Why don't I go with the one that Bjorn sent me, because it's his story as far as I'm concerned. Facebook has deleted a post by the Norwegian Prime Minister. Well, geez, I missed that entire portion of it. So thank you, Bjorn, for clearing that up. That's sort of a big deal. Deleted a post by the Norwegian Prime Minister. Yowza. In an escalating row, very European of you, over the website's decision to remove content featuring the Pulitzer Prize-winning napalm girl photograph from the Vietnam War. Erna Solberg, the conservative prime minister, everybody catch up on that, please. I think you would have drawn a blank for me. I know what Aleppo is. If you had said, who's the prime minister of Norway, I would have said, I am embarrassed to tell you, I have not the faintest idea. Bjorn, I apologize. I would have said Bjorn Nitmo, probably. Anyway, Erna, I'm going to guess at that, as opposed to Erna, which is probably how Americans would say. Let's say Erna. It sounds that much more European. Erna Solberg, the conservative prime minister, called on Facebook to review its editing policy after it deleted her post, voicing support for a Norwegian newspaper that had fallen foul of the social media giant's guidelines. Okay, so that's where it originated. Solberg was one of a string of Norwegian politicians who shared the iconic image, mostly, I'm sure, out of astonishment that it had been deleted, after Facebook deleted the post from Tom Egeland, a writer who had included the Nick Ut picture. Here's my question. How does he pronounce his name? I have to go way back to 1972 to figure that out. UT. That's the name of the photographer. And that's something else I probably should know and never paid any real attention to. I paid attention instead to the content of the photograph. I'm sure the photographer can understand that. Nick Ut. UT. Could be Ut, but let's say Ut because that sounds so sophisticated. Anyway, his picture was included as one of 7 photographs he said Egeland had said, changed the history of warfare. That's true. Egeland was subsequently suspended from Facebook, and his standoff with the social media giant was reported by the daily newspaper, oh my goodness, Aftenposten, I'm hoping, which used the same image in its reporting of the story, because duh, you have to. And duh, it's iconic. And itself came under pressure from Facebook to delete the picture. Aftenposten's editor-in-chief, Espen Egil Hansen. You're killing me, guys. That's not so hard. Norwegian names don't perplex me so far. At least I think so. Said the newspaper had received a message from Facebook asking it to either remove or pixelize the photograph, which I think would be criminal, really, if you did that. Not literally, but well, actually, I mean, I suppose you'd be screwing with the guy's IP, the photographer's IP on that, but I guess you could probably get away with it if you really thought that it was actually inappropriate. But I don't know. I wonder how they display that photo in, I don't know, Saudi Arabia. Saudish Arabia, do they pixelate it? Do they acknowledge the Vietnam War? I don't know. He refused, of course, and wrote an open letter to Mark Zuckerberg saying he was failing to live up to his role as, quote, the world's most powerful editor. Good point. True. In her intervention on Friday, the Norwegian Prime Minister wrote that the photograph, entitled The Terror of War, and featuring the naked 9-year-old Kim Phuc, I'm guessing, on, again, now more international pronunciation, Phu with an accent C. You could probably do a lot worse with that pronunciation if you're just guessing. Running away from a napalm attack, that photo, of course, had shaped world history. Solberg added, I appreciate the work Facebook and other media do to stop content and pictures showing abuse and violence, but Facebook is wrong when they censor such images. Or at least this image. I mean, this is a photo showing abuse and violence. It was just state-sponsored abuse and violence, and backed by, and, well, I guess the weaponry actually produced by, and I suppose dropped by American planes, although I'm not 100% certain that that's the case. I mean, I'm familiar enough with the picture and that it was napalm that was responsible. But I'm reading the description of the photo that says, this, of course, happened after an aerial napalm attack on suspected Viet Cong hiding places on June 8th, 1972. An Allied plane however, accidentally dropped its flaming napalm on South Vietnamese troops and civilians instead. The terrified girl had ripped off her burning clothes while fleeing. Everyone knows the background of the story, but I guess what's not discussed as often is who dropped that napalm after all. I mean, I had assumed all these years that we had. There's not that many people manufacturing and dropping napalm. Allied plane, we didn't have a tremendous number of allies in the war either. I mean, I guess it's possible that South Vietnamese, did they even have an Air Force? I don't know. I don't remember. I wasn't politically aware at the time. If you were, it's probably obvious to you offhand. But it had always been my assumption that had been dropped by the United States. It's certainly manufactured there. It was only there in Vietnam because we put it there. And that was enough, I think. And that was the point of the photo. Anyway, before being deleted by Facebook this morning, her post, the Prime Minister's post, went on to say the website's decision helps to curb freedom of expression, adding, I say no to this form of censorship. It is a ticklish issue, of course, because, well, I mean, you could certainly manipulate the photo in various ways and then claim the excuse of it being an iconic historic photo, but that would be like one of those situations where you know it when you see it, I guess. If running this and say this is a collection of photos that changed the face of warfare, changed the course of history, shaped world history, as he put it, I mean, it should take a human editor 2 seconds to realize, yeah, we don't touch this one. Solberg said, it is highly regrettable that Facebook has removed a post from my Facebook page. That's regrettable enough, I mean, for anybody, but for the Prime Minister, doubly so. What they achieve by removing such images, good as the intentions may be, is to edit our common history. I wish today's children will also have the opportunity to see and learn from historical mistakes and events. This is important. I hope Facebook uses this opportunity to review its editing policy and assumes the responsibility a large company managing a broad communications platform should take. On the decision to delete the Prime Minister's post, Hansen told The Guardian, I have to back up and remember who's Hansen. I said Hansen, so it's Hansen, Espen Egil Hansen, the the newspaper's editor-in-chief. So Hansen, we've got to scroll back down here, told The Guardian, which we're reading here, at least they don't discriminate. We have to give them credit for that. That's true. You could certainly make a case for it being some sort of favoritism of sorts to delete this picture and not others, or to delete others and not this one. But I don't know. Was anybody ever complaining about this photo in the Facebook age? I don't know. The CEO of Aftenposten's publisher, the Schibsted Media Group, said Facebook had tried to stop the newspaper publishing one of the most important photos of our time. Rolf Erik Riesdahl added, "It is not acceptable. Facebook's censorship is an attack on freedom of expression and therefore on democracy." Riesdahl said Facebook was increasingly powerful in Norway's media market, capturing, we're talking about money here. Okay. It's in Norwegian krona, I guess. 1.5 billion of those damn things, which is helpfully translated into pounds sterling. That doesn't really help me much either. 137 million pounds. Got a better idea, kind of the amount of money that we're talking about there. But okay, so that's the story. 1.5 billion kroner worth of advertising in Norway annually, I suppose, while paying only crumbs, by the way, in taxes back to society. Ah, yes, and they're big on that in Norway. Schibsted Media Group believes it is very important that the Norwegian media industry now gather to create an independent alternative to the American giant's enormous power in the advertising market. He said, I thought it was time for a Facebook ethics conference. But so much the better. Okay, Norway is ready to compete. We are talking about the prerequisite for independent journalism. Facebook's treatment of Aftenposten is another proof of the importance of this. A Facebook spokeswoman said, "While we recognize that this photo is iconic," let's see what the excuse is, "it's difficult to create a distinction between allowing a photograph of a nude child in one instance and not others." It's not difficult for this photo, but overall I could see it could be difficult. I mean, at what point does the iconic photo that changed the shape of the world's history kick in? What if there's disagreement? That's not a famous photo. That's just a nude child. Well, it's changing the world of, it's changing my history. I'm about to be arrested for posting it. Okay, well, that's arguably true, but it didn't really change world history. Now, does it? What if people have seen this? I know that photo. I've seen it all over the place. It's the one the guy got arrested for. Everyone knows they arrested Bjorn Nitmo for putting this nude photo on Facebook. How could you not know? Well, I wasn't a fan of the Montreal Machine when he did that, so it might be locally famous in Montreal, but not worldwide. But this one is. This seems like an easy call. It's something that even, that Mark Zuckerberg could probably fix, and maybe he should. But, they're gonna run into those problems. Let it not be on this photo. I mean, it's an easy call on this photo. It might be a harder call on another photo. Let the problem arise over a harder photo, because that's much more defensible. But I understand they have a difficult task ahead of them. It's difficult to create a bright line rule that's applicable across the board in all instances when the photo depicts a nude child. That is true. We try to find the right balance between enabling people to express themselves while maintaining a safe and respectful experience for our global community. Our solutions won't always be perfect, but we will continue to try to improve our policies and the ways in which we apply them. The posts would have been reported by a user, would have to have been reported by a user to Facebook's community standards team, who would then have to make the decision to remove them rather than being removed automatically by algorithms. So that clears that up. It wasn't a computer algorithm that did it. Somebody would have had to complain. So that's the answer. There is somebody in the Facebook era who found the picture objectionable. The question is who, where, why? I don't think anybody knows. Does this mean... and here's a good question about the community standards. Does that mean, did it have to be a Norwegian person who complained? I mean, that's one of the American standard for pornography cases anyway, is usually community standards. You know, basically you gotta, I don't know how you're supposed to figure it all out, but I mean, I guess that's what jury trials are supposed to be about. But if they violate community standards, that's something. That's what it was supposed to stand on in American law. But if the Norwegian paper posts it, does that mean, I mean, what's the difference? If a Norwegian paper posts it and the religious police in Saudi Arabia complain, does Facebook care? Although that's a very complicated business model Facebook has to run on. I mean, for a company that started in somebody's dorm room, I'm sure they didn't have any visions of it going worldwide like this. But what do you do, even as the modern global power that Facebook is, with an iconic photo like that posted in Norway, where, let's say, nobody in Norway objects, because they're pretty sensible guys in Norway. They got their weirdos, to be sure, but in most cases, everybody recognizes this is a historical icon. So does it matter if they complain in Saudi Arabia? Does Facebook say, well, in Saudi Arabia, you can display this thing pixelated? Well, we got a Saudish filter for you. You can put that on. I'm sure they have such things. I know they have deals, internet giants are constantly having to deal with China and what they want to allow and what they don't, as Google has had to deal with. So I'm sure Facebook has similar issues facing it. But what if the complaint does come from inside Norway? And what do you do with something like that? What if the complaint comes from like an Anders Breivik kind of guy who's just insane, or who's a Norwegian alt-right type person and is trolling Facebook and or the newspaper and or the prime minister and or everybody? What do you do with something like that? How do you credit the complaints? Interesting. We'll perhaps hear more about that in the near future. Bjorn, in fact, shares the PM's bilingual replacement post. She's gone ahead and put it up again. We'll take a look. Did she put the picture up again, and is it going to be there? Curious about how she illustrates the thing. I will not be reading it in Norwegian, despite the fact that Bjorn says so far so good on the pronunciation of the Norwegian names. There's no chance I can make out exactly what this stuff says. It's one thing to say the names, which are mostly easily worked out. Okay, well, let's see. Well, here's the new picture. Now it is, and this is interesting because it shows basically what do we have to do with history now if we have to censor everything out. She didn't pixelate it, but she put one of those big redaction blocks, a big black redaction box over the girl in this photo, and everybody knows. They may say, unfortunately, they may now argue, well, everybody knows what that picture is and what it conveys, and so there's no loss there, no loss in integrity of the message, because the message has already been burned into us. But I mean, it wouldn't have been if this had happened. And then a couple other censored photos, one other iconic photo from the Vietnam War, that being the street execution, in which we have blocked out the face of the man being executed, though they might as well have blocked out the face of the person doing the executing as well. They were probably the more concerned of the two. Blocking out the face of Hitler, blocking out, what else? Pieces of the Tiananmen Square. I think you get the idea. This could be a Facebook or Twitter meme by this point. Okay. Well, that is a hell of a story. Probably will be discussed over the weekend, and you are now well prepared. And you didn't even have to go to Norway to get the scoop. Okay. Let's see. About a half an hour left here. Let's do some more Donald Trump bashing, shall we? I saved this one yesterday. I almost wandered into this one, but let me start over in this direction. This is something that's been on my mind. I think I made mention of this story perhaps earlier in the week. Back to Vanity Fair. They have all the scoop on people's sexual peccadillos somewhere along the line, or hints at them. In this case, Donald Trump. And I mentioned to you that this is an older article. It comes from January, and it was something I guess I was looking for, and still haven't stumbled upon that piece that I was looking for. I stopped looking at some point, but the piece I was looking for earlier in the week about how Donald Trump just sort of routinely lies or denies stuff that's obvious about trivial facts involving his deals usually. But I stumbled upon this one instead. Remember this one? What's behind Donald Trump's obsession with beauty pageants? Let's paint some dark innuendo. Because why not? Because earpiece, right? We're entitled to do our same or worse because we're stooping to their level. I love stooping. It's terrific. Judy Bachrach wrote this piece back in January about the fact that Trump does seem sort of weirdly obsessed with beauty pageants. And it struck me that he, in this article, it notes he owned 3 of them, 3 beauty pageants, and then tried to buy a 4th one and had a deal going on the side with a 5th one. Plus he worked, I don't know whether he sponsored or tried to buy, remember the Hawaiian Tropic one. It's interesting, to say the least. And, of course, his alt-right supporters were like, hey, he loves beautiful women. What's the big deal? That's why we love him. But, I mean, and I guess a billionaire can buy whatever he wants, but what a weird thing to collect, don't you think? Beauty pageants? I mean, considering how little they, in fact, I think, contribute to society. I mean, sometimes, way back when, it was sort of an iconic thing, I guess, and then we grew up and realized this is stupid and continues to objectify women who would otherwise, I think, be putting their considerable talents to work in a way that's that much more productive than parading around. But, you know, your mileage may vary. Anyway, I just thought for a guy who makes his living, supposedly, he wants everybody to think he makes his living building great buildings. I mean, they're architectural wrecks for the most part, but whatever. I'm building things. I'm doing real estate deals. I'm making things happen. Increasingly, that's not where the bulk of his money comes from. It's mostly from licensing deals, so he's a bit of a fraud in that respect. But what's the argument for buying so many beauty pageants? Are you trying to, does any serious analyst see anything in any opportunity to make serious money cornering the market on beauty pageants? The answer, of course, is probably no. I don't know how much money they really make for their owners, but they must make something because everybody's always starting beauty pageants. But it just seems like in the world, well, Armando argues all the time. The guy's not a real billionaire. The guy's got no business acumen. He's a loser, and everything he touches loses money. So you gotta wonder, he's clearly not building an empire and building a fortune for himself with beauty pageants. Nobody thinks that's the place to make money. It is for penny ante money, compared to the 1%ers who really are raking it in, and people who are hedge fund billionaires many times over. That's where the real dollars are in these financial transactions. But you can eke out a living if you own 5 beauty pageants and run them well. you could probably, if you're capable of squeezing a profit out of one of them, then presumably you can squeeze 5 times more out of 5 of them. But it usually doesn't produce the kind of money that we think of Donald Trump as being interested in, which is because he's not interested in that. He's interested in the women. The idea of buying a beauty pageant appeals to him because it means that every year there will be a bevy. Is it even a sexist thing to say it's a bevy? I don't know. Anyway, a bevy of beautiful women who are meant to compete for his attention, and he can dismiss, at least in his own mind, the uncomfortable thought that he's sexually harassing them for his advantage and trading on their interest in trading on their own advantage by flirting with him. And it's all on the up and up, because after all, they're trying to win the pageant, and I run the pageant, so of course they're trying to suck up to me. But, if something happens, one thing leads to another. Well, who am I to get in the way of nature taking its course, et cetera, et cetera. What's so terrible about wanting to surround myself with beautiful women? Well, okay. There are many things that are sort of actually terrible about it, and I don't really need to go through listing them, but I suppose there's a possibility that you could legitimately be interested in such a thing and just say, not every beautiful woman can earn a degree in nuclear physics and advance that way, and or some of them in their interest, though they have an interest in earning that degree in nuclear physics, can't afford college. And I'll give a scholarship. Well, okay, they could probably get a scholarship elsewhere or doing something else. Or you could arrange for internships for beautiful nuclear scientists, aspiring nuclear scientists, to get better scholarships based entirely on their looks. If you feel like it, I guess you could probably get away with that. I wouldn't do it, but you could. You're disgusting. You try it. But instead, he's just, okay. So he's interested in beauty pageants. So he's interested in 5 beauty pageants. So he's interested in having 6, 7, 8 beauty pageants. Why? Well, it's one thing. Annually, I'm surrounded by beautiful women who are competing for my attention. What do I do for the rest of the year? A problem arises. So how about this? Why don't we have 5, 6, 7 beauty pageants, all with different schedules? That way, beautiful women are always competing for my attention. What am I going to do with all these beautiful women competing? I can't marry them all. I can't even have illicit sex with all of them. I could try, but sometimes it won't work, and sometimes I'm just going to be busy because I have to do a Trump water deal or go play golf poorly and cheat, say, for instance. But what other explanation is there for collecting beauty pageants? So what is behind Donald Trump's obsession with beauty pageants? Of course, Donald Trump's nether regions are behind Donald Trump's obsession with beauty pageants, but I don't think Judy comes out and says it. What she does say, of course, is that at one time or another, Donald Trump, the presidential candidate and newly minted anti-sexism warrior, yeah, right, has owned or co-owned 3 beauty pageants. Miss USA, which was always a terrible and cheaper knockoff of Miss America, which is a pageant that's long outlasted its cultural significance, but whatever. Some people really still value it, particularly the contestants. I'm not going to get in the way. You want to be in it, be in it. Miss USA, though, what's the point of having a Miss USA if you already have a Miss America? Well, you got to have somebody to send on to the Miss Universe or Miss World competition, right? Well, send Miss America. Well, but it's not affiliated. Okay, fine. Whatever. But Miss USA was always, it seemed to me, about, well, we're the pageant where the bathing suits are bikinis. And Miss America is too staid and conservative, and they want their girls in one pieces. We're going to do bikinis. And they're going to wear high heels. And basically, we want more boobs in Miss America than Miss America is willing to give us. So, Miss USA. And just to put a finer point on it and make it more disgusting, Miss Teen USA. Because why have, what's so exciting about a pageant where women walk around in bikinis and high heels if you can't get arrested for hitting on the girls? That's the real thrill. So Miss Teen USA, okay, maybe they're 18. Fine, terrific. We may even host it in the state where it's okay if they're 15. Who knows what we're going to do with Miss Teen USA. But you got to have a farm team for Miss USA. You can't just have these untrained rubes coming out of the woodwork from all over the country, and it's not like you can just put on a bikini and high heels and walk around and get it right. I mean, actually, there really is some art of some kind to all of this. I'm sure I would find out if I tried to compete in it. But, the need for a junior circuit for Miss USA, questionable. And, of course, the third one that he owned or co-owned, Miss Universe, which is not Miss World. It's different somehow. All three of the ones he owned or co-owned fell under the Miss Universe organization parent company. In other words, Miss Teen USA fed to Miss USA. Miss USA, when you win Miss USA, you get to go on to the Miss Universe contest. So vertically integrated in that sense. In addition, Trump in 2002 also had his sights set on the Miss World competition. You remember that we noted that last time we read it. Unifying the belts, I guess, like in boxing. He wanted to eliminate the competition of Miss World and merge it into Miss Universe. Anyway, so why would he do such a thing? Own three, try to buy a fourth. And what is the fifth one that I was talking about? That one goes back to, I don't know. When do we even consider this thing? This one was way, way back and came up in the context of yet another lawsuit against him. Remember that I read from Law News that time that the woman and her husband and perhaps then boyfriend were invited to Mar-a-Lago by Trump in order to work out a partnership deal on their strange, and I think strangely titled, as I recall, pageant type event. It wasn't exactly a beauty pageant, but it was pretty much the same thing. I don't know if I can call that one up, but this was the woman ended up. She tried to get a partnership of some sort going, and then later she filed a lawsuit for sexual harassment of some kind. She had been willing to let the complaint drop, but I guess when news that it had happened leaked, Trump said something disparaging about her, and that convinced her that even though she may vote for Trump, she was going to press forward with the lawsuit just to prove the point that she was mad at Donald Trump for bad-mouthing her. Anyway, what's he doing with all these pageants? Other than wanting to date the girls, I can think of nothing. Now, the article, you'll recall, perhaps, goes on to be mostly about him being critical of one of the Miss Universe winners gaining too much weight. That's bad, but it's not really very revealing about what his obsession with beauty pageants actually is. But here's the stuff that kind of occurred to me. I realized it is awfully weird to own or co-own 3 beauty pageants and then try to buy a 4th and then try to cut a deal with a 5th. But it's also kind of weird for him to add to that. I guess once you get into the business of pageants, you might, if they really are profitable, you might want to buy more of them. Okay. Of course, you might want to buy more of them because you enjoy having the girls flirt with you and compete for your attention. That's what's really going on. I doubt very much that they're that profitable. But it all becomes more profitable for him personally as he opens up the Trump modeling agency. And the Trump modeling agency, you may recall, raised some issues as well. One, because as it turns out, he herds all of these women into East Village apartments and holds them there under contract. And I guess they see very little money out of the work that they do while they're here. And two, it's highly questionable whether the girls, in many cases, they're young teenagers, women in other cases, are in the United States legally. He once again, just as was alleged to be the case with Melania, who, by the way, did in fact at some point come up through the Trump modeling agency. He was managing her modeling career because he's super good at that, right? Give me a break. But, the rest of the models aren't being treated all that well, I guess, except for the one he decided to marry for whatever reason. And we read about her strange immigration status. Let's take a look then at Mother Jones's longer story about what's going on over at Donald Trump's modeling agency, which is another weird thing to buy, but like I said, is vertically integrated with the pageant thing, in that when girls compete for his attention in the pageant world, he can leverage more attention out of them by saying, most of you seek modeling careers after all this is said and done, and guess who can give you a modeling career? I can. Trump Modeling Agency. What do you think of that? It's beautiful. I'll tell you. Believe me. Former models for Donald Trump's agency say they violated immigration rules and worked illegally. It's like modern-day slavery. I would suggest that is probably a ill-conceived analogy, but hey, it's a favorite. People go to it all the time. This is James West writing in the August 30th edition of Mother Jones, if there is such a thing as editions anymore with the online world taking over. Republican nominee Donald Trump has placed immigration at the core of his presidential campaign. As we know, he has claimed that undocumented immigrants are taking our jobs and taking our money, pledged to deport them en masse, and vowed to build a wall on the Mexican border because so many models are sneaking over the Mexican border. At one point, he demanded a ban on Muslims entering the country. Speaking to supporters in Iowa on Saturday, way back when, in late August, Trump said he would crack down on visitors to the United States who overstay their visas, and declared that when any American citizen loses their job to an illegal immigrant, the rights of American citizens have been violated. And he is scheduled to give another major address on immigration in Arizona on Wednesday night, and you know what happened in that one. But the mogul's New York modeling agency, extraordinarily important player in the industry, right? Not at all. And guess what he calls it? Trump Model Management, has profited from using foreign models who came to the United States on tourist visas that do not permit them to work here, according to 3 former Trump models, all non-citizens, who shared their stories with Mother Jones. And according to anybody who can think through what happened to Melania as well. Financial and immigration records included in a recent lawsuit filed by a 4th former Trump model show that she too worked for Trump's agency in the United States without a proper visa, which is what everyone says Melania did. And poof, she worked for Trump modeling agency too. So, total coincidence. Believe me. It's a total mess. Foreigners who visit the United States, as you know, as tourists are generally not permitted to engage in any sort of employment unless they obtain a special visa, a process that typically entails an employer applying for approval on behalf of a prospective employee. Employers risk fines and possible criminal charges for using undocumented labor. Founded in 1999, about the time that he needed a new wife, Trump Model Management had risen to the top of the fashion market, boasts the Trump Organization's website. It, of course, had risen nowhere near the top of the fashion market, but so what? Believe me, it's a total mess if you don't. And so what else? It's a name that symbolizes success, though, of course, it doesn't. According to a financial disclosure filed by his campaign in May, Donald Trump earned nearly $2 million from the company, in which he holds an 85% stake. Very important to be heavily invested in models. Meanwhile, some former Trump models say they barely made any money working for the agency because of the high fees for rent at a crap apartment, no less, and other expenses that were charged by the company. In other words, a company store for models. Canadian-born Rachel Blaise, just say Blais, I don't know, B-L-A-I-S. Is she French? Don't know. She spent nearly 3 years working for Trump Model Management After first signing with the agency in March of 2004, she said she performed a series of modeling gigs for Trump's company in the United States without a work visa. At Mother Jones's request, Blaze provided a detailed financial statement from Trump Model Management and a letter from an immigration lawyer who, in the fall of 2004, eventually secured a visa that would permit her to work legally in the United States. These records show a 6-month gap between when she began working in the United States and when she was granted a work visa. During that time, Blaze appeared on Trump's hit reality TV show The Apprentice, modeling outfits designed by his business proteges. As Blaze walked the runway, Donald Trump looked on from the front row. So it's not even like that one anyway, a legit modeling gig where a third party says, I need a model, and Trump says, I have a model. Does she meet your needs? Yes. Terrific. I'll rent her to you for $1 million, and arm's length transaction takes place. Yeah, I see a beautiful woman. I bring her into the country. I'll get you a modeling contract. It's not happening. Maybe because, I don't know, maybe she's not cut out for the job. Maybe he's doing nothing whatsoever to promote her, but she needs the illusion of work, so I'm going to put her on The Apprentice. The challenge in The Apprentice is we got to, market a line of clothing. In order to market a line of clothing, you need a model to show the clothing. I got models. I'll bring her in. He probably didn't even pay her for it because it's a self-deal. Anyway, 2 other former Trump models who requested anonymity to speak freely about their experiences and who are they gave pseudonyms to, Anna and Kate, said the agency never obtained work visas on their behalf, even as they performed modeling assignments in the United States. They provided photographs from some of these jobs, and Mother Jones confirmed with the photographers or stylists that these shoots occurred in the United States. Each of the 3 former Trump models said she arrived in New York with dreams of making it big in one of the world's most competitive fashion markets. But without work visas, they lived in constant fear of getting caught. I was pretty on edge most of the time I was there, Anna said of the 3 months in 2009 that she spent in New York working for Trump's agency. I was there illegally, she said, a sitting duck. According to 3 immigration lawyers consulted by Mother Jones, even unpaid employment is against the law for foreign nationals who do not have a work visa. If the U.S. company is benefiting from that person, that's work. That's how it's defined. Not if you're getting benefit from it. If somebody else is, that's work. Maybe it is a little bit like slavery, but just a little. That was explained by Anastasia Tonello, global head of the U.S. immigration team at Laura Devine Attorneys in New York. These rules for immigrants are in place to protect them from being exploited, she said. Whoops, too late for that. That U.S. company shouldn't be making money off you. 2 of the former Trump models said Trump's agency encouraged them to deceive customs officials about why they were visiting the United States and told them to lie on customs forms about where they intended to live. Anna said she received a specific instruction from a Trump agency representative. If they ask you any questions, you're just here for meetings. Trump's campaign spokeswoman, Hope Hicks, how does she do it? Declined to answer questions about Trump Model Management's use of foreign labor. That has nothing to do with me or the campaign, she said. Now, that has nothing to do with me. Can't help you. Adding that she had referred Mother Jones's queries to Trump's modeling agency. Of course, Mother Jones also sent detailed questions to Trump Model Management. The company didn't respond to multiple emails and phone calls requesting comment. How does she do it? I'm baffled. Fashion industry sources say that skirting immigration law in the manner that the 3 Trump models described was once commonplace in the modeling world. In fact, Politico recently raised questions about the immigration status of Donald Trump's current wife, Melania, during her days as a young model in New York in the 90s. She, of course, says, it was all on the up and up. Kate, who worked for the Trump Model Management company in 2004, marveled at how her former boss had recently branded himself as anti-illegal immigration on the campaign trail. He doesn't want to let anyone into the U.S. anymore, she said. Meanwhile, behind everyone's back, he's bringing in all of these girls from all over the world, and they're working illegally. The article then goes on, by the way, to describe some of the crappy conditions in which he kept them in what he called models apartments, as they're known in the industry, dorm-style quarters where agencies pack their talent into bunks, in some cases charging the models sky-high rent and pocketing a profit. According to the three former models, Trump Model Management housed its models in a 2-floor, 3-bedroom apartment in the East Village near Tompkins Square Park. Mother Jones is withholding the address of the building, which is known in the neighborhood for its model tenants, to protect the privacy of the current residents. When Blaise lived in the apartment, she recalled the Trump agency representative who served as chaperone had a bedroom to herself on the ground floor of the building. A narrow flight of stairs led down to the basement where the models lived in 2 small bedrooms that were crammed with bunk beds, 2 in one room, 3 in the other. Bunk beds, that is to say, 4 and 6 in each room. Models. An additional mattress was located in a common area near the stairs, and at times the apartment could be occupied by 11 or more people, which might be illegal all by itself. Trump Model Management recruited models as young as 14. I was by far the oldest in the house at the ripe old age of 18, Anna said. The bathroom always smelled like burned hair. I'll never forget the place, she added. I taught myself how to write, "Please clean up after yourself," in Russian. Gee whiz. Wonder why she had to do that. Well, anyway, though I'm about out of time, I wanted to say that's not as far as the vertical integration goes. Let me hint at something for you, darkly, and you can read it on your own over the weekend. But hey, it's in the Washington Post, so, it's good reporting. Philip Bump, as a matter of fact, writing on the question of solving the mystery of, what's the next logical step in all this? Solving the mystery of Trump escorts. What? He owns 15 different beauty pageants because they're such great investments. He owns a modeling agency because it's such a great investment. They pack them 11 into a East Village hotel because they're clearing millions and millions on these things. What's the next step? Trump escorts. Is there such a thing? Well, not entirely clear exactly. Of course, they deny everything about it, but Philip Bump has a little more than just denials, I will say. The day after Donald Trump announced his candidacy last June, an unexpected press release bearing his name was sent out to the media. It was from an escort agency boasting about a redesigned website which would now provide ratings for its fresh, I love that word for young women, fresh, captivating, educated women of beauty and charm. Ratings anywhere from 4 to 6 stars. With offices in the United States, Australia, and Europe, this was a global organization, and as its name made clear, the press release was from Trump International Escorts, an enterprise that promised an experience to trump all others. Ha ha ha. That is pretty clever. What's it all about? Well, Philip Bump looked into it, and of course it has since changed its name, and golly, it seems like there's some real evidence of a connection between Trump International Escorts and Trump himself. As far as I know, has there been a lawsuit? You would think that if there was no connection, he would sue them for copyright infringement of some kind, or trademark infringement anyway, but no word on that happening. They do, however, deny that they have anything to do with this as an interloper who's come in and stolen their intellectual property, just as they steal intellectual property at every single rally when they play music without permission. But hey, that kind of intellectual property theft is terrible. My kind is awesome. Philip Bump, looking into things. I'll share that with you. Gee whiz, this guy really integrates his ventures up and down the line. It raises questions, lingering ones, as a matter of fact. Have you got lingering questions about what else is going on in the world? The after show will answer that for you. Coming up next with these stories and more, Wells Fargo fires thousands of workers for opening 2 million bogus bank accounts. Damn, I should have gone into that business. North Dakota Governor Jack Dalrymple activates the National Guard ahead of a ruling on Native Americans' lawsuits to stop construction of the North Dakota Access Pipeline. And research shows cannabis didn't make Gary Johnson any more stupid than he already is. He did it all by himself. How does he do it?
From Daily Kos Radio on netrootsradio.com. You have been listening to the Kagro in the Morning Show
with David Waldman.
What's up for the last half? Well, there's a steel crisis, and new rules are needed to solve it. And a dietitian discovers there is something bogus and dirty about the clean food movement. Oh, that ought to be interesting. All of that, plus the Connect, Unite, Act Daily Kos Community Calendar, and more on the After Show with Winston Justice taking you into the weekend next.